Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Emerson.
Perfect. If people can just mute, and I'll ask Neil to unmute. Welcome to Nando Live. We have Neil Denham for an hour. If you have any questions, you can ask a question by raising your hand. If you have a question that you want to type, I can read that for you. And welcome, Neil.
There we are. Yeah, thank you, Emerson, and welcome everyone to a meeting about what is already. And the suggestion is here that what is already unconditionally whole and unconditionally free. Which means it's already not two. So there's no actual duality to become the non-dual. We could also say in that sense that non-duality is just a term to describe what is already. So because this is what is already, then there's no intention here for anything to be taught or for anything to be gotten from this. There's no intention actually for anything to happen, because the other part to this is that all there is no thing just apparently happening. So because nothing needs to happen, there's nothing we need to get out of this, and this isn't going to go somewhere. So that leaves the question really as to why these meetings happen. And these meetings happen as a response to an apparent experience that arises within this, that says that negates everything that was just said, that says everything that was just said isn't the case. And that experience seems to arise out of a tension or a contraction in the body, which very simply seems to have the experience to be self-aware. It really doesn't do anything else apart from that. It just seems to be, there seems to be an apparent tension, an apparent contraction in the body, where this sense to be someone, or the claim to be someone, seems to arise out of. And then what seems to happen over apparent time is this contraction seems to become more and more contracted and more tense, because it feels that the me or the I am, which seems to arise out of this tension or this contracted energy, seems to feel more and more insecure or more and more threatened. So what then tends to happen is that contraction seems to get more and more contracted, and then it seems to take on certain belief systems about how the world is and why the world is and why it's here, and as a way to try and know this appearance or know what's happening, because it feels if it can know enough about what's happening, then it can get something from this or something from life that is going to be in some way fulfilling. The reason why there is this need for a fulfillment is because what also seems to arise with this apparent contraction, or this apparent sense to be here or to be someone, is that is in some way not enough. That is in some way unfulfilled. There's a kind of a dissatisfaction that arises within that. And that's because the I am experiences itself as being separate. It's almost as though as the apparent I am arises, it seems to kind of push everything else away. And then there begins this apparent duality, or this apparent subject-object experience for that experience. It doesn't know that. All it apparently knows is itself to be present. That's the claim. And the suggestion is that whole thing, that whole sense to be someone, is illusory, in that it's not real. It's not actually happening. So there is no separation. There's nothing that needs to happen, because there's no need for an illusion, or in other words, for something that isn't actually happening to stop happening. But what seems to be a part of that experience is it sort of seems to hide what was said in the beginning about this already being whole and already being complete and already being perfect fulfillment and already be and that this or what's longed for is what is already. That experience seems to hide that in some way. Doesn't seem to be seen as long as there is a sense to be someone, because with that sense to be someone as that separate self, it then creates a need for something to be found so that it can overcome the apparent separation that it is, or that it experiences itself to be in. And that's it, really. That's the suggestion. The whole thing, that whole thing isn't real. So because that isn't real, then nothing needs to happen. So that quite literally means there is actually no one to die or no one to drop away for this to become or be something that it isn't. It's just what apparently happens already. So we can talk about that. We can talk about what was just said, or we can talk about anything. Feel free to ask any questions and we'll go from there. I think Oli's first up to bat. Hi,
Yeah.
Oli. How are you doing?
Hi. About what you said, so it even doesn't serve us to know that it's unreal, is it? It doesn't serve us to know that it's unreal.
No, nothing serves that experience because it isn't actually happening.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, oh yeah, you said in another meeting that it is heard when it is heard.
Yeah.
And you say also it's energetically, it's energetic. So when there's a big contraction, it's always contracted. Can this also happen when it's really tight? The contraction, you feel it.
Yes, but no one knows that.
Okay.
Because the experience itself is that apparent tension. And it's only apparent, of course, and all the individual seems to experience is itself to be present. And experience and knowing are kind of the same thing, really. So all that knowing knows is the knowing of itself as being present or as being real.
Okay, but
it doesn't know anything else, so it can't know anything outside of that sort of contracted sense to be someone. So in that sense, that contraction can't find the contraction because it is the same apparent energy. So there's no way to get out of it. And it's like it's just not even recognized or realized until that apparently falls away. Or at least that's how that seemed to be here. There's no way to know it while it's there, because that which wants to know what that is the knowing itself. So it can't get outside of the knowing in order to know itself as that knowing.
Yes. Yeah, I heard Tony Parsons, saying that when at one time of his search, he decided to stop everything, and I don't know if it is right what I'm saying, but he says here before he stopped everything. He didn't like in another search as he was before. So is it right what I'm doing when I'm saying? Do you know that?
I mean, you would perhaps have to ask him. That's what apparently happened in that story.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a different story for every apparent individual. who is experiencing itself to be in life, so to speak, then there's going to be a kind of a unique story there. So there's going to be a different story there. There was a different story here as to the seeking, certainly. And in some stories, there may be a report that there was a natural kind of falling away of the sort of intensity of the seeking. There kind of was here before I came to this as well. There seemed to be a natural, I've talked about it before, there seemed to be a natural realization or recognition in a way that the seeking wasn't getting me to where I felt I needed to get. So there was just seemed to be a natural sort of relaxation about the seeking. But the apparent falling away, because of course there is no one to die, there is nothing that needs to fall away for wholeness to be whole.
Okay.
So only apparently it is completely acausal. The seeing of what was said in the introduction, so to speak, no one sees it, is completely acausal. So it could happen while there is very intense seeking going on, or it could happen where there's no seeking at all. It could happen, nothing really happens, but the apparent seeing of what was said in the beginning could happen to someone, or in the case of someone who's not seeking necessarily in the sort of spiritual sense, or looking, reading books on Advaita or something like that, or following a, Buddhism or a religion or something like that. It could just be that falls away.
Yes, and because it's a few times, I try to stop searching and just try to get on with whatever life is. But at one time, when it's a little while, it is scared here that oh boy, I always am scared about forgetting about it, but I guess that's a good thing to forget about it.
Yeah, well, if there's a natural just sort of easing off of the seeking, then that's just what's apparently happening, of course. The problem is for the seeker, of course, is that it can take on the idea that there shouldn't be seeking, or that seeking isn't going to get it anywhere, and take that on as an idea or as a concept, and then imagine that what's being suggested here is that there shouldn't be seeking, or there shouldn't be meditation, or there shouldn't be
whatever
or a process of some kind. The only suggestion from here is that there is no process that can bring about what is already. And what is already what's longed for.
Oh, yeah. I should, no, I should not do anything, but that word already. I love this word.
That's where the mind goes. Right, okay, I should do this, I shouldn't do that. It doesn't matter.
Yes, and a person, let's say, is very, very sick, it could happen to a person that is very sick also. It doesn't have any condition to happen, or I know it's apparently happening, but the falling could happen to any with any condition, I mean, human condition or physical condition or whatever.
Yeah, because that's part of the revelation, is that nothing ever happened. So not to means never to, never separate. This never becomes separate in the first place. So in that sense, nothing happens. Nothing needs to happen, and nothing actually happens. It just seems for no reason, but what seems to be a part of that experience with the sense to be someone is that's just not seen, because all that knowing seems to know is itself to be present. It doesn't know anything outside of that.
Okay.
So it never really knows what's happening or what's appearing. It never really knows what life is. It never really knows what that is, or what that's about, or why it is, or anything like that. And it just can be that knowing can just fall away, seemingly. And then what's revealed in that is there was never anything known, and there was no knower to know it.
Mm. Incredible. Okay, thank you very much, Neil.
That's okay. It's an appearance. It's a completely dreamt experience or reality, which from within the dream seems to be real for the experiencer.
Yes.
Because all it can see is the dream of itself. So it can't know anything other than the dream of itself to be here and to be real. It can just be that dream can just suddenly disappear. And then there is a seeing or a recognition that it was just a dream. It was never really happening. It was completely imagined.
It always wants that end of the video. Yeah, the me always wants what you're saying. Oh God! Even if
it's already,
yes, it's already.
Yeah. What's longed for is already everything.
Yes, and what we like the dream is not even real, but
it's a dream.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question from YouTube, from Kimpy. Can the self fall away and then come back?
There can be glimpses, apparent glimpses. I mean, there isn't a self to fall away, and there isn't a self to come back. But there can be glimpses. There can be an apparent falling away, and then that contraction can sort of come back. Yeah, apparently that can happen.
Question from YouTube. What is the dream?
The dream is that I am. The dream is I am.
And it's unreal.
That's why it's called a dream. Yeah, the dream is that there is an individual or a separate self to which life is happening. Turns out there's just life apparently happening. There is no one. There is no dream. Laura.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi.
How
How I am? I feel very good. How
Good.
do you feel?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there was just this question rising. I thought that the body had, in a way, learned this to sense I am. So what you are saying is basically that this has never really happened. The body has never learned that.
No, it's a false claim in that sense.
Yeah.
It comes out of this apparent tension or this apparent contraction is a false claim, which it gives rise to the sense to be here or to be present. And it really just comes down to an apparent self-awareness as being aware of itself.
Yes, and that is something like a kind of a physical misconception.
It would be if the body could know it, or if that could be sort of sensed or felt in some way.
Yeah, but that is not happening as well. Yeah.
Well, if there is that apparent contraction or that tension, then which has the experience to be self-aware. As I said earlier, all it's aware of is itself to be aware in the illusion, in the dreamt reality. So it can't know anything outside of that. So it can't get outside of itself, apparently, to know itself objectively. So the tension can't find or locate the tension with the tension. It just seems to be, it seems to be in the body, but it seems to arise in everything else as well.
And what did
Because
we
it's like
ask?
everything is
Something.
experienced as that tension or as that contraction.
Yes, 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 yes. It in a way projects itself onto everything then. Yeah, it sees it's like the ultimate narcissist in a way.
Yeah. Well, all it sees is itself. All it knows
Yeah.
is itself, and all
Yeah.
that knowing is knowing as itself to be present to
Yeah.
whatever is appearing.
Yeah.
So if there is a tree appearing, then all it experiences is itself to be present and being aware of a tree.
Oh, yeah.
And in some way or other, that awareness seems to create that separation between the tension and the tree, or the individual, the me and the tree. And when that
Yes.
falls away, it's recognized that not only is this completely empty, but the tree itself is also completely empty.
Yeah.
Everything is completely empty. Everything is emptiness, just appearing as an apparent form within the whole, which is singular.
Yeah. Yes. This I can't. This is so. I would never have thought that when I speak with you, that the resonance would be like 100% in a way. I cannot describe that. It's like really, it's like as if you speak. I just can't describe it anymore. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Amazing to speak with you. Amazing.
Well, it's a message. It's nothing to do with this.
I know. Yeah, but there's still something.
I don't have something that you don't have.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not a teacher, and there's no teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, and still I feel that there is something like I regard this message in a way like one tune, which is played through different kind of instruments in a way. So like you have to, so there is like, I don't know, so just for whatever reason I cannot pin it out.
Yeah,
listening to the flute, for example, is just
well, it's all an expression of no thing.
Yeah.
That expression there may be a sort of a slight sort of difference with the character who is expressing it.
Yeah. There is.
It's still an expression of no thing, of course, and it's still coming from no thing. It's certainly not in this case as coming from a someone.
One, yes. Yeah. Amazing. It's stunning. It's stunning. It's like it's like so flabbergasting for this mind here, and but in a very enjoyable way. It's crazy and it's good. I cannot just amazing. Amazing. I can only repeat myself. Amazing.
I always think that would be the best introduction to this.
Yeah.
It'd be just as good as what I said earlier.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Question here. Hi, Neil. Thank you for doing this. So this means that there's no one to forgive and forgiveness doesn't happen?
Well, there might be an apparent forgiveness, but no, there is no one forgiving or no one to forgive. No. What seems to happen when there is the sense to be someone is it just by the very experience of itself to be present seems to be claiming everything that apparently happens as a real happening that is happening to itself. And part of that seems to also be that it takes, in that taking ownership of what apparently happens, is it feels that it is responsible for everything that apparently happens. And it turns out in the end, everything is just doing itself. It just doesn't need a someone, doesn't need an individual. It doesn't need to be known or understood. In fact, it is unknowable. Dimitri.
Hey Neil,
Anyway.
you're just saying that like this is already everything, and I suddenly got that sense that I sort of like I can't understand it with my head, but I suddenly got a sense I have no idea. Like I can never imagine what you're speaking about. Like it's like totally beyond like any kind of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. How can there be a speaking to everything or about everything? How can everything be shared or communicated in some way? Because it would also be that communication. It would also be an apparent communication or sharing or a message.
Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah. It's completely unknowable.
Thank you.
As in there's and that also what's meant by unknowable is there's no one in it to be experiencing as a knowing of what this is.
Yeah, thanks.
Question here. Thank you, Neil and Emerson, for doing this. If there's no doer, what's happening then?
Nothing. This is nothing happening. It seems to be the doer that experiences itself to be doing this, that needs to know what's happening. But there is no way to know what's happening because there is already no one. The doer is completely dreamt. Dennis.
Yes, I want to talk a minute about the glimpses that you referred to earlier. I've had a number of glimpses beginning at a very young age, 6 or 7, and they've continued periodically throughout my life. A typical glimpse is I'm just doing whatever I'm normally doing, then all of a sudden there's a gap. And I come back, the sense of me comes back. And it's just totally blown away by what happened. It can't describe or say anything about what happened other than it had a whole sense of perfection and coming home, and I chase after it all the rest of my life. If I was not there to see the glimpse, how is this I reporting on the glimpses that it has had?
The mind makes up a story about what that was or what that could mean, because what it needs to do is fit it into some kind of context. If the apparent me comes back to claim that glimpse as I had a glimpse, I had a falling away, it needs to fit it into the context of the personal story. It needs to give it meaning, even if that is a dreamt story with a dreamt meaning as to what that was. Because in the end, there's no one to know this as perfection. So there's really no one who could claim this as perfection. The word perfection may come up in an attempt to describe what is already, but there's no one to know that as being perfection.
I get that I've made up the story about it, but still there is the feeling, the sense
I know what
that
you
it
mean.
was
Totally.
that it was, you know, that it was something other than
Oh,
the
totally.
story of me. Is
Yeah.
that legitimate?
Yeah. Oh no, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
The me, when if it comes back, it just tries to know it and fit it into some kind of a context.
And the other thing I noticed
attaches a
about
story to it.
I have no sense of time at all during the glimpses. I mean, when the sense of me returns, I don't know if it's been an hour or a tenth of a second. What can you say about that? Anything?
Well, there is no real time. This is completely timeless. So there may be a sort of a sense of that timelessness in the glimpse, but it's still that timelessness. The story or the dream story is there is someone fading in and out of glimpses, so to speak. That's still part of the dream, that there is someone to be having glimpses, of course, because what's actually revealed in the end is that even that sense to be someone, even that story is perfection. Is that word?
If
it is wholeness. It's a better word. I prefer that word. I don't like saying perfection. It is wholeness, just appearing as that. It is wholeness appearing as that sense to be a separate self or someone, or that personal identity.
I think I about got it. The subtlety for me is during the glimpse, whatever that was, the glimpse itself does not feel like a dream at all. It feels absolutely, totally 100% real, and yet there's nothing I can say about it. Would that be a legitimate glimpse of no thing?
Well, the natural reality, if there was a glimpse of the natural reality, then that wouldn't be as being real. So there isn't an actual kind of a real and then an unreal. There's neither. There's just the appearance as to what apparently happens. I would say that most people would report that the sense to be someone, or that experience is I am here and I am real. And actually what seems to happen in those glimpses is that sense of realness just isn't there. And that's this isn't real. It's not unreal, but it just doesn't have the reality in the claiming of the experiencer to be experiencing this as something known.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
Question here, is what's being talked about like lucid dreaming?
No, I would say that the me is, well, it depends what you mean, really. Is the natural reality, or is this lucid dreaming? No, absolutely not. I would say that actually it is the sense to be someone, which seems to be the lucid dream. So if that's what you mean, is the sense to be a person or an individual who is as having a life and making choices and decisions in order to move through life as being on a journey, then yes, that is a lucid dream. Yeah, I've heard it described as a hypnotic dream as well, in that it's absolutely believed while there is that apparent dream or the dreamer as being present to the dream. That seems absolutely real, but it never actually has any reality. That's the surprise in the end. It just has no reality, no actual reality.
Question here. Can you describe unconditional freedom?
Well, it's this, which is indescribable. It can't be described because it is everything. There's everything as being unconditionally free. It's even the thought that this isn't unconditional freedom, or I need to know what unconditional freedom is. That's unconditional freedom appearing as that thought. And there's just absolutely no way to describe that, because there's no position within that unconditionedness to be able to know that from. There is no subject as knowing an object or a something as being unconditional freedom. It's all unconditional freedom. And there's no way for unconditional freedom to know itself as unconditional freedom without there being an apparent duality, which there isn't.
Question here. I have seen people claiming that they can get you enlightened in a few sessions.
That's a question? Yeah, me too. I've seen that too. Yeah.
I guess they want you to comment on that.
Yeah, no, I know. I realise I was just being facetious. Yeah, no, yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, there is no enlightenment. What's longed for is this, already this. And it's the idea that there is one to become enlightened, or that even an enlightenment could happen somewhere else in the future, which seems to in some way or other deny this, the freedom that it is already. So we could equally say there is no enlightenment, or we could say enlightenment is all there is. No one ever becomes enlightened. And being that no one ever becomes enlightened, I don't know how someone could teach someone else to become enlightened.
The same person asked, are they selling glimpses?
Are they selling glimpses? Not necessarily. Like I talked about, a glimpse, an apparent glimpse. So a kind of a sort of a falling away and then a coming back of that contracted sense to be someone. They can just happen, and they can be completely acausal. And I've heard lots of reports, especially sort of more and more as I've been speaking and more people get in touch with me, that there have been glimpses way before anyone ever learned the word awakening or enlightenment or all these kind of ideas or concepts that the individual who kind of senses the separation, the more sensitive kind of individual character who senses that sense to be separate, begins to find out about. Even way before that, there can be apparent falling away and then coming back and just not being able to describe what that is. And it's completely acausal. And a glimpse is the worst thing that can happen to you. It's the worst thing that can happen to a person. Or an awakening, a sudden awakening or something like that is absolutely the worst possible thing that can happen to a person.
There's a question here. Hello, Neil and Emerson. Thank you for this meeting. Can I ask, does the not you make decisions? How does your day go along? Do the things that need to get done happen, please? They
seem to, yeah. Yeah. It's just obvious in the end there's no one making decisions. There's no one, there isn't an entity in here that is making decisions about how the day goes. The day just apparently goes. There's just an apparent functioning. An apparent day going. But all there is in this, as this, is the memory of an apparent day. There isn't a real day. There's only this. There is only ever this appearing as a memory of a day.
Anita, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Neil.
Anita.
Can you say something about stillness?
In what sense?
Oh, so yesterday evening, it looks like that I felt a lot of love in this stillness.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I suppose in a way there's a profound stillness when that which is never happening seems to stop happening. Because there's no actual movement, there's nothing actually really moving. So all there is stillness, in a way, appearing as an apparent moving. There can be a sort of an appearance of movement, but the whole itself, the infinite, the absolute, doesn't actually move.
Yeah, it wasn't a movement, yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, there's nothing moving.
No.
Really.
No. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Anita.
I'll get you, Dennis, but I have a question here. Does a causal mean the same as random?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It can just seem to be, or spontaneous. There can seem to be a spontaneous, just kind of falling away, but only as a story, though, really, because of course what's revealed in that apparent falling away is there's no one to fall away, and that nothing actually needs to fall away for there to be non-duality, so to speak, because it's all there is already. And non-duality is just a term, like I was saying earlier, that's sort of used to point to what is already as being whole already. It's the end of an apparent dream of separation that's never real. Dennis.
Yes, you talked about, I mentioned glimpses a while ago, and you said a glimpse at very young ages, but then an apparent awakening can sometimes be one of the worst things that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here to verify that's exactly what happened. My initial glimpses were at age 6 or 7, 8 or so, and numerous before I ever even heard of any of this. Yet it has totally altered my whole life. It's made me a seeker, a chaser after my whole life. It's dominated my whole life, and it's made me very angry that I haven't found what I'm looking for, because it already is. So I guess I'm just commenting on that.
Yeah.
And it never will, right?
Oh, no, totally. Yeah, no, it totally fucks your life up in a way, because something else has been seen other than the kind of the perception of that self-identity and that ownership of a life as being my life, and I am then responsible for this life. I am making choices and decisions. I have free will. I manage this. It's exhausting. And if there has been a sudden falling away of that, or of that appearance, then yeah, absolutely, yeah, because sort of something else is seen, and it will, yeah, that's enough to make a seeker out of anyone, totally. Yeah.
It simultaneously feels like it was a curse and a blessing at the same time. I don't know which way to view it.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Question here. I really can't understand that this is what we are longing for when I'm so sick and I have terrible pain.
Okay, well, physical pain. Well, that's what's longed for too. It's not what the individual wants, but that is wholeness appearing as pain or as physical illness, if that's what's happening. It's difficult to know just from a comment or a question. Totally. Unconditional freedom, which means it can appear and does seemingly appear as anything, as everything, including pain, suffering, including an apparent individual or separate self. But all of that is completely whole.
Question here. Can you please explain how a pain can happen without a me?
A pain, what, a physical pain? Well, it's just pain.
Physical pain, I think.
Yeah, well, it's just pain happening in the body. If there's a me, then there will just be a me claiming that as being my pain. And that's the dream, that the pain is yours. It's just pain.
Darren from YouTube goes, "Hey Neil, no one knows what you're talking about."
No, me neither. Yeah. 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 No, of course not. No, there is no one to know. Dimitri.
You just said that something like there is no choice and the things just happen without anyone.
There's no one choosing.
Yeah. And but when there is apparently the sense of someone, there is still no one choosing.
Yeah, well, yes, of course. Yeah, because there isn't. There is no one. That sense to be someone is the dream.
What would you say is the feeling of like feeling guilty? What is it?
I think that's associated with the story, isn't it? That there is someone, the individual and the story are the same thing. So guilt, I was talking about this with someone recently, in depression as well, I think is associated with the story as not going in the way that that particular individual feels the life story, the dreamt life story should be going. So the response to that is to be depressed, or if it's about something that happened in the past, to feel guilt about that. So I think those sorts of feelings are associated with the dream story for the person who experiences themselves to be real as that story.
I always thought it's just a sense of kind of responsibility, being responsible.
Yes, that's another. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, yeah, totally.
What you just said was also interesting. That it is a sort of like a desire to control in a way.
Well, in the taking responsibility. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it does that through trying to know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It claims everything. The knower claims everything by trying to know it.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks. There we go.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yes. You could say this goes against all human knowledge.
Yeah, it's not a knowing. There can still be knowledge, so to speak. I mean, the brain sort of has knowledge about how to do things, or I would say. But what's really being shared can't be known, so it can't be understood and stored as knowledge. But there can be knowledge.
But the apparent me has nothing to do with knowledge.
No, well, there isn't a me.
Yeah. There's no reason to be here.
Absolutely not.
No. I'm trapped.
Totally. But it's not that anyone can choose to do that, of course.
No.
These meetings, there would be no communication and there would be no meeting if there wasn't a report from there or there or there or there or there or there. I'm assuming that there is someone who needs to find something in order for something to happen, for this to be the wholeness that it is already. And I guess as long as there is that report from there, then there will be a response here. Or not, maybe not, who knows? These meetings are purely a response. The communication is purely a response. It's unconditional freedom. Responding, I've forgotten the word for a moment, it's unconditional freedom, responding to unconditional freedom. But there, it's unconditional freedom, reporting that it isn't unconditional freedom.
Yeah, I don't even know what I am. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Thanks, Neil.
All right, thanks, Dario. And Anita, yeah.
So when there is a young child, it's boundless energy, and then the contracted energy comes in this child.
That's the story.
That's the story.
There is only boundless energy or boundlessness, taking the form of an apparent contraction, which then seems to have the experience to be self-aware as a knowing.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is it William first and then Dennis?
Hi, Neil. So what's going through my mind at the moment is that the me is just completely terrified of unknowing.
It isn't.
It isn't terrified of unknowing.
Well, there isn't really a me as being terrified of unknowing. It's a false claim that comes out of the dreamt sense to be someone.
But you know, when we were talking earlier today and we were saying that all the me will do is survive, and when it imagines liberation, it can't imagine what it is because it's always projecting itself like me having a better life or some kind of experience.
Well, all that knowing claims all that knowing can apparently know is itself to be present. but that's illusory. It's not really happening. So to claim that there is an individual there who is afraid of unknowing is still part of that false claim, out of that illusion to be someone who would be afraid of unknowing.
But there's a great fear arising. So it's part of the illusion, the fear that's arising of not being here.
All there is unknowing. Already. This is already unknowable. In that there is already no one having an experience of this. I understand there may be an experience that reports to the contrary there. And when we were talking earlier, we're talking about how that illusion seems to manifest and how that seems to be, but it's not real. It's not actually happening.
And that's why nothing's actually lost. When
yeah, there's nothing lost or found.
So nothing is any different now than when there was I mean, obviously there's no longer a seeking, but when there was apparently Neil 2 years ago, and before that, seeking, looking for answers.
There was only a dream of different. But it turns out that that wasn't actually happening, wasn't actually real.
And everything just goes on exactly as it did before, obviously without seeking, but...
Seems to, yeah, seems to.
I still think you're enlightened. I'm sorry if that's offensive, but...
A liar?
No, enlightened.
Oh, enlightened. Oh, God, I'd rather be a liar.
I still think you must have become something.
No, of course not. And of course, any individual goes, only an enlightened person would say they're not enlightened. No, of course not. No, it's a complete dream. Enlightenment is a complete dream.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right, thanks. There's nothing to become enlightened. And Dennis, hi.
The dream. I said here, having the dream that is my whole story and me. The others watching this are also having, I assume, a similar experience of they are having a dream. It's their story. Yet it appears to me that my dream is somewhat different than other people's dreams, in that they have their own personal story. But we have the commonality of this common Zoom thing we're doing right now, a common universe, a common world, all of that. Is that a fair way to look at the dreams, that there may be no dreamer, but there's a lot of similar individual dreams taking place in a conglomerate of one massive dream?
Yes,
sort of.
Yes, but I mean, the word dream is used in a way to try and highlight that as being not really happening. So yes, there may be a report there, and there, that there is an individual, unique dream story happening there. And I would say, I'm sure there are different memories for each of these little windows. There's going to be different memories of what apparently happened in the past. There's going to be, I would say, even unique characteristics as well about this body. This body doesn't seem to look like any of the other bodies. Maybe William a little bit, now that I'm wearing the glasses. So there's an apparent uniqueness in that sense, in that this has memories of a story or of a life, that it's going to be different to those. Yeah. So in that sense, yes. But the dream is that there is someone in the dream. It's a dream of a dream in that sense. The dream is that there is someone, full stop.
And is it these apparent differences in the different personalities that basically allows for and creates all the drama that occurs in my dream? all of that interaction between the other dreamers, relationships, all of that.
Not necessarily, but I would just say that there is I wouldn't say personality necessarily. I would say that this body seems to have unique characteristics to say that body. And I would say that there is a character here that is going to be different to that character there. And this character may respond in certain ways, depending on the conditioning or the nature of the character, to what appears in a different way to that character there or that body there. Same thing. The character is the body.
Is the difference that there would not be ownership when there's not a sense of me?
That might be the only apparent difference. Is there may be a sense of ownership of that as being a self or an individual who is having an individual experience of life. And
okay, thank you.
It's completely dreamt. I mean, literally complete. It's a complete dream.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Neil.
Oh, is that time? Right?
Yeah, it's already
just getting warmed up.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
we're going to have a breakout room after this,
Yeah.
if you guys want to join that. And tomorrow we have another holiday kind of like breakout room. So see you tomorrow. And you can mute yourself and say bye, Neil. Are you going to stay for the breakout room, Neil?
Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm going to hang out because my Christmas dinner's been cancelled because of